podcasting is international. You didn't need me to tell you that. But what is interesting is having international guests on. This week's guest is from France, and she has some really, really good stuff about branding. And if you think your episode from like 2 years ago is dead and useless, guess what? It's not. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Stay tuned. Nathalie, thanks for coming on today. You've got an interesting story because you started in IT. You've got this rich background in this world of logic. Mm-hmm. And then you start the membership lab where you're talking about brand building with podcasting. I mean, you're humanizing these complex systems. You're working on this stuff. So how did your systems first brain go over to the sometimes messy, some unpredictable world of content creation? How did you make that jump?
Yeah. So actually, it's pretty logical, I would say, in the way this came about. So our background. So I run a business with my husband and business partner, and we are both technical, come from IT, software engineers from the Silicon Valley. And basically what this came about is we realized really quickly, like in our first 6 years of business, when we moved back to France, that just the technical bit and creating products, we were creating softwares, is not going to get us a successful business because you still need marketing, you need sales, all things that we were trying to avoid. So through connections, because I belong to, networks of women, and I basically surrounded myself with other business people, because I'm not wired as an entrepreneur. Like my husband is, and I'm more like the employee trying to catch up and be the entrepreneur. But it's something that I really have to work on. This is not really like who I am at the core. So it's always been a bit of a struggle, but it's something that I know, so I can work with that. So the way this works is that by basically being surrounded by other people, really quickly, I realized that there are so many different pieces and hats that you have to wear, in the business. And the softwares that we were building, it turned into, well, let's build websites because that's what people want. Then we got into the e-learning space. And the thread has always been, we need to solve a problem. If you want people to buy your stuff, whether this is a service or a product, you have to solve a problem that they have that they're willing to pay for. Okay. So that's the logical bit. Now, in order to do that, they need to know you exist, right? They need to know that you have a solution, and they need to know believe that the solution will work for them, right? So, and how do you do that? Well, you do that through your visibility, through sharing content, right? Through a strategy, right? Now, what I love about podcast and how this really came to be is, one, the fact that you don't have to be on video for people that don't want to be on video. But there is this thing about hearing people's voice where you can really feel the emotion and the energy, and if people actually believe in what they're talking about, right? It's very different than writing. Writing, you can read something, and if you're in a bad mood, you're like, oh, she's attacking me, she's mad. And if you're in a good mood, you're like, oh, right? So there is this interpretation that you have with writing. And I think that when we do audio, and video is even bigger than that, is you accelerate the trust factor. I mean, the love you or hate you kind of, because, it goes both ways.
Yes,
right?
It does.
But that's what I love about podcasting. Like if you have something to say, and you're not a writer, doing a podcast where you basically record yourself makes, allows you to be much more like natural and just talk the way you talk to people, which is actually what you want, because this is how you're going to attract the people you're meant to work with, right? And like writing, where you can spend 3 weeks rewriting your post, right? To get close to zero engagement. And then you're like, oh my God.
Not that any of us have done that before.
Yeah. So that's really been the transition. It's really looking at what others are doing and then what it is that I want to do. So when I started my podcast, I now have 137 episodes for the membership lab. I really started the podcast actually on a dare. Somebody said, I was working with, said, can you do 100 days of videos live for 100 days straight? And I said, yes, I can. I've done it before on Facebook. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to record those and I'm going to turn that into a podcast. So those were the first 100 episodes of my podcast, unedited. Right?
Wow.
And then I went on to do 37 interviews because then I got into it, and I started to interview people and have, like great conversations, like around coaching programs, online programs, e-learning and all that stuff. So that's really where it came about. But it's always been like, is there a gap? Is there a problem that people are having right now? And can I create a solution for it? Now, the podcast is a great way to connect with people, like I said, but you also need a podcasting strategy, right? Just podcasting is not enough. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly. We talk about it all the time. You've got to have that strategy. You've got to have those pieces to it to make sure that, exactly. For sure. Yes. So is that where the school kind of came out of that then?
So basically podcast lead flow that's really where it came from, is like, how can we help people use a podcast to generate leads and sales? Like there is a missing gap, a connection. How do you connect with your listener? People believe that, and a lot of people still do, that people listen while running, gardening, etc., and half listen and do something else, and that is true. Like that's one way that people consume podcasts, and you cannot change that, right? But you can be strategic about it because it's all about repurposing. And what do you do with those episodes? They are real assets, right? And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, is that they publish an episode and they think that it has a 1 week lifespan and then they're back to creating another episode. No, you created an asset. How can you repurpose it in a way where you control the next step?
I love that, because I've had a number of guests where we've talked about, like, first off, you've created that asset. There's so many different ways to repurpose it. And again, it's an evergreen asset. When I look back to our downloads on our podcasts, on some of the podcasts that we produce for, there's 10, 15, 20 episodes back, there's downloads coming in every single week. It's not, I love it's not a 1 week thing.
Yeah.
You've created this. Now, granted, the first week is probably when it's going to be working its hardest for you.
Yeah.
But as it goes along, it is still out there. It is still doing the work for you. I had someone the other day talked about, they did a podcast, and off of that podcast, they created a blog. And that blog is still, it's one of the biggest drivers to their website. And that was done in 2019.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. When it's the right message at the right time. I mean, and we can talk about that too, but like the key in the content, what do you say in your podcast, right? So that it speaks to the right person, right? To the state of how they are right now. What do they need to hear for the next step? And so it's the whole podcast strategy. I think people think that podcasting is a strategy. No, it's just a tool. Right.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. Podcasting is not a strategy. It's a tool. I make the example too all the time of how I always tell people any tool in your toolbox can be a hammer, but not any tool in your toolbox can be pliers. And too many people try and use podcasting as just a general tool rather than it like, look, it's good at this specific thing, not everything.
Yeah.
With especially when it comes to the strategy. How, like, when you talk about the strategy, and I love you talked about like the journey. Are you talking about the buyer's journey in terms of like where they're at in terms of your sales funnel, or what were you kind of referring to with that?
So basically, I think the first thing is you need to understand or to be really clear in your head while you're podcasting. Like, what is your intent? If you're selling high tickets and you are selling through calls, right? People have to book calls. Then you need to reverse engineer that and think, okay, what do I need to share in my podcast for people to relate to what I'm talking about, for people to feel that, she knows what she's talking about. I kind of like her style or his style. And what do they need to hear in order to trust you just for the next step? And the next step could be, give me your name and I can send you something of value, right? When we created Podcast Lead Flow, it's like, give me your name, tell me a bit about you, and I'll send you something really, really unique, generated by AI. That's one of the things that we have that's unique to you. And that's where we make a real connection, because now they're like, okay, I'm telling you about myself. You give me something of value. And then that person can be added to your CRM, right? To your follow-up email sequence. You invite them to go on a call or things like that. So that it's really like reverse engineer what the ideal client workflow is and where does the podcast fit. So of course, you're not going to have all your episode work that way, right? You can have interviews, you can have inspirational posts, but I really strongly believe that as part of your strategy, you need to have a couple of key, I call them asset episodes, where the sole purpose is to show you how you work, what your solution is, and having in mind the person that's ready, like the person that has the pain and is looking for a solution and might say, let me look into that. Okay. So, and these, you literally use them as you're using a lead magnet. You repurpose them. We had a client, she shared that episode in a nurture sequence, right? So existing people already on her list, they've never booked a call, they've never bought anything. She added it to the sequence as one of the value emails. You know how you nurture them, right? And you give them regular value. Well, if you have really, really good episodes that you know are relatable to people, then add them to your nurturing sequence. Even if it's 2 years old, like you were saying, it doesn't really matter. It's value, it's an asset. And because they can hear you and reading from you, because they can hear you, they can feel the energy. They can feel that you believe in what you're talking about. And they are much more likely to take the next step if they are ready.
I love the way you word the kind of hear you. And I'm not a big energy person, but I feel the same way about it, because once again, so many people, they think, oh my gosh, what happens if someone hears me and they don't like me? And I'm like, great, they're not your client anyways.
Exactly.
That person's going to call you and just be annoying until you finally say, look, we're not going to work together, or they're going to say, look, we're not going to work together. So eliminating people up front is not necessarily a bad thing. It is very much, it gives you the ability to find your people, find who you're going to get along with, find who you want to work with, as long as you've got the right words in place, and as long as you've been targeted for the funnel. I love how you've said that. It's interesting because to me, like, when did you feel like there's a lot of people that take podcasting and they struggle to move past this is a hobby?
Yeah.
And we talk about pod fade all the time. I believe that the latest thing that I saw was 86% of shows struggle to get past episode 15.
Yeah. It's really,
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, you and I both know this. This is difficult. This is not just, hey, I'm talking into the can and magically it appears online. It's just this wonderful thing that is just people going to have them beating down my door to write me checks. As you have gotten into this, like, when did you finally say, okay, this isn't just creating noise. This isn't just creating content for the sake of content. Like, when did you say, shoot, we have to place this correctly in the funnel. We have to be strategic about this. When did that finally click for you? Was there a specific moment? Was there an episode? Was there a guest? What put that piece of puzzle in place?
I think it kind of came gradually, like
sure.
What I remember of it is that I started to lose the motivation of finding guests or things like that. And I think when this happens, you really want to question, like, why am I doing this podcasting thing again? Like, that was fun at the start, but and if you're losing your motivation, then question, like, why are you doing it in the first place? And are you able to measure? So for me, I wanted more visibility, and I wanted people to know everything that I know about memberships. I wanted them to know that I am behind some really big memberships, 7 and 8 figures that are in the coaching industry. I wanted people to know that, and I am able to share what I learned from these big companies that are working with my smaller clients. And when I realized that I could not figure out the impact that my podcast had on the business, I lost my motivation. Right?
Makes
sense. So you're podcasting, and then you have clients, and clients are telling you, yeah, I saw your podcast. I really like what you're doing. Like, it's straight to the point, no fluff. It's pretty short. I think they're like 10 minutes or something like that, unedited. But I'm like, but I have no way to connect with the people that are listening.
Sure.
So is it efficient? Is it making sense for me to still do that? So this first test that we did with a friend, where we put this strategy in place, and she shared it in her nurture sequence. And guess what? She got somebody that was on her list, book a call while she was on vacation. So that was really cool. When she came back, she got the call, and she sold a $7,500 coaching program. And she told me, wow, I was able to reconnect with somebody on my list thanks to an episode. So it's a real asset. It doesn't have to be live. It doesn't have to be consumed on Apple or Spotify, because these platforms, they want to grow their audience. They want the listeners to stay there and binge content, right? If you want the podcast to work for you, sure, you should be there. Sure, you should have show notes. This is great for SEO and all that stuff. But you also have to repurpose it on a platform, whether this is your website or a pod page or something like that, where you have control over what is happening next. That's where you connect with the listener, right? So that's basically I want to say, when we did this test and she told me, like, she booked and she bought, I'm like, what? Like, in 1 week, like, we did this thing. And I'm like, she's like, she's willing to pay for a service just for that. If somebody, imagine if you can give one client a month like this to a client by putting this strategy, then now she can see it's coming from this episode number 125, right?
Sure.
You see what I mean? So now you can reverse engineer and say, like, okay, I know this episode works. How can I continue to repurpose that? Right? So, and I think that's how you really come up with a strategy that is going to work long term. Do you think she wants to keep podcasting? Oh, yes. She's going to be much more strategic about what she talks about now. Sure. Right? Because she's like, what do they need to hear? And it's okay, again, to have those episodes where you want to talk about something because it needs to come out. It's your way to express, your views. People need to see your values, and if you're funny and all that stuff. Sure. But it also needs to be very, very strategic if you want to attract those people, for business.
What's interesting, and the thing that I've pulled from this too is that in so many cases we talk about how like we in large part look at podcasting as content creation. I mean, because as you know, you can create the email from it, the blog from it, you can create all the social clips from it and everything like that. And it's nice because they all kind of feed each other. If you send the email, you're like, hey, go check out the video. And in the video, you're like, hey, go listen to this in the car also. And scroll us while you're sitting in the bathroom, all these other things. I didn't even think of the, hey, this episode from 6 months ago may apply to what you're doing now. Go ahead and send that directly to the person as part of the CRM to say, look, here's an update for you. That's a very interesting attitude about that. I love that. And that once again, too, it is that added way to bring people in and to keep them in your ecosystem, to keep them interested, keep them, I guess I would say, keep them perked up to knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful way to look at that. When you talked about like how there's been times where it specifically brought clients in, other than that, like looking at the return on investment from it, is that the main way that you gauge that? Like looking at like these 5 people have told us that they've come on as a podcast, but how do you justify the return on investment for, let's say, your show? Other than that one specific instance where, I mean, are you seeing that quite often, or is there other, I guess, are there other telltale signs that people can look for to say, oh, I'm pretty sure that came in from the podcast?
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, my background, like logical, like I was creating automations and things like that. So we really love marketing automation, but like behavioral automation also, which is, like based on what you do and what you don't do. So, when you look at it from that purpose, basically, the idea is that if you can have metrics, if you can measure you can see everything as an experiment, right? Let's run an experiment, and this is what we expect. We're going to run this. We're going to put this episode in front of X number of people, right? Let's see how many get into our list, right? And then from there, how many, actually open the email. And then, so if you put the metrics in place, if you put the KPIs, right? Then you're going to know, if I put this amount of money, now I can afford to put 200, 300, 500 into producing an episode, because I know that on average,
Sure.
I get this, right? So, for example, the numbers that we have is like, I think per week, oh gosh, I can't remember, like 20 leads. Like, it's basically what it is showing is that you don't need a lot of downloads.
Sure.
If you're in front of the right people, right? People think they go after downloads because that's the metric that everybody feel they control. We don't even know if they're correct, right? But basically, like if you get, say, 20 leads per week, and on those 20 leads, there are 5 people that book a call, and you sell 2. That's all that you need if you're doing high ticket, right? So the numbers is that work is going to be the number that works for your business. Yeah. The person, like my client, like who is now a client, like she doesn't need a lot. She doesn't want her calendar to be filled with calls. She doesn't need that many, right. But she needs good one pre-qualified, right?
It's funny. I talked, like we talked earlier about the pre-qualified thing. It's the right people. The other thing I always tell people too, when it comes to those downloads, I always say, if I told you there was 10 people in the next room that were really excited to hear from you, would you go talk to them? And people are like, well, yeah. And I'm like, that's the same as the 10 downloads. It's the same thing. It's 10 people that want to hear from you. So I would like, yeah, you have to push through that.
People need to realize something. Like it's just like we were looking at numbers because, we're working on content and people want to see numbers. And I was actually quite shocked. I knew it was low, but I didn't know it was that low. And I believe, I hope I'm not making a mistake here. I'll share it, later with you. 50% of the podcasts have 30 downloads or less.
Yes. I have seen that stat also.
Okay. So that's what it means. It's like, don't go after volume unless you want to run ads and you want sponsors, right? But if we start to compare the big guns, like what they do and where the first 3 minutes are just ads and ads and ads on different products they promote, that's how they make their money. That's not how we need to run our podcast at our level for what we want to do, because we have a very different purpose. So podcasting with purpose and having a strategy, I think, is the key. And you have to create your own metrics. What success means to you, for your podcast. We all have different definition of that.
I truly love that. I've heard the old saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And everyone sees, like you said, the big podcasters and they're like, I want 3 million downloads. And I'm like, no, I want 3 people that will write checks. That is the big difference. I want 3 people that want to do a podcast and want to do it right. I don't need 3 million. I need 3. And that's what we look for. Since you've been doing this and since you've had your podcast, what's the top thing that you think that you've learned in doing yours, where you've like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to be a thing when you started this?
So first, when I started it, like I said, it was more like a dare. So I didn't want the podcasting was a recurring, a repurposing thing, right? Sure. I'm like, what am I going to do with this thing? I might as well do this. And I guess what I learned, it's like anything that you do for a certain amount of time, like you find out if that's something that you truly enjoy and want to keep doing, or if it's something that's not aligned. Again, if it's not aligned with your vision and what you want to do, eventually momentum is going to die down.
Sure.
And it's not going to be sustainable. So really, really always important to do the things that you love, even if sometimes we have to do things that we don't love. But I mean, in the general direction, like if you hate being on video and you're scared, don't go and do videos. It's going to be really, really hard to get started, right? To get your motivation. And I think it's the same for podcasting, right? So that's the first thing that I learned, is that really listen for the signs. Are you still excited, doing it after all these, so many episodes? Or is that something that you're doing like as a hobby, like you said? So if we talk about like the hobby thing, I think some people starting doing a podcast to grow their business, but without a strategy. And now it turned into a hobby, right?
It's funny you say that because, for me, like conversations like this, I truly love. I enjoy the opportunity to sit down and learn and have these types of conversations. And I see that with some of the business owners that we work with. They're like, okay, I've got to create marketing material, whatever, we'll do a podcast. But I see like some of the good ones, a couple of episodes in, they're really excited about it. They're like, this was a lot of fun. It's for me, I get to create marketing content and have fun and learn while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
This is a pretty good deal. This is a really good deal for me to do this. That being said, if someone is there's a time that someone is thinking I should do a podcast, but they're on the fence, whether it's a small business owner, medium business owner, marketing manager, someone that just wants to create their own content, tell their story. This is the question I always love to ask people. What would you tell them as like your top piece of advice? And it can't just be just press record. That's lame. Yeah. And we joke about that.
Yeah, it's useless. Press record is useless.
Right. So what is the top piece of advice that you're going to tell people when it comes to starting to create that podcast?
Yeah. So, it's not just for podcasting, but let's just say for podcasting, if you've had this idea of starting a podcast and it hasn't happened, you have 2 choices. You shelve it and you stop thinking about it because it's mental space, or You're like, let me create an experiment and figure this out. If it's going to work, if I'm going to like it. Say you're going to do a season. Because a lot of people don't start because they feel like, what if I run out of things to say?
Yeah.
Well, if you're talking about something you're passionate about, you won't. Because you can bring in depth. There are like so many ways, right? But let's say you do a season. That way, it allows you to have like a set time. I'm going to do 10, 15 episodes. Okay. Then you reverse engineer. Why do I want a podcast? What is my objective here? Okay. From there, what are 10, 15 topics that I can talk about where I can share my point of view, my unique point of view that might upset some people, and where there might be some people that say, hey, actually, I think like her. I kind of like her, right? Or him. And do that, right? Now, a lot of people I know get a bit worried about the tech, like the sound. Of course, the sound is important, and all that stuff. And that's why you want accelerator. You want people like you, right? To say, because this is what you do. This is an accelerator. Right now, speed matters more than any time. Like in 2026, right? You have to be like, do it, try it, or shelve it. But don't let it take mental space, right? Because we only have so much. So that's my advice. And if you're like, but the tech, I'm not exactly sure. Do I have the right mic? Do I need to buy the thing? Work with an expert, accelerate, get this, look at what do you want to measure, right? And then at the end of the experiment, look at it. Did you enjoy doing it? Did it bring you any leads? I bet if you have a strategy and if you do that, what we talked about, you will. Of course, we need to talk about quality of content, right? You need to talk about something that you're really good at. It sounds like obvious, but if you put that structure, that infrastructure, and if you surround yourself with people that are going to tell you, I've done it plenty of times. I take care of the tech. You focus on what do you need to talk about and your zone of genius, your unique brilliance, right? What do they need to hear? And that's that unique opportunity where you don't have to be a writer. Then we can talk about you just press record. But you just press record when you've done all of that.
I love that. That is, and to me, the either shelve it or do it is not only just podcasting advice. That is phenomenal business and life advice. Yeah. It really is.
Yeah. I would add one more thing is that when you procrastinate, and I've procrastinated I don't think we have time, but I wish we had. But if you find yourself procrastinating about it, it could be a sign that that's not something that deep down you want to do. Maybe you're like, I see other people being successful with the podcast. I want to have a podcast, but maybe deep down you don't. I've seen this for memberships. I've fought through it myself for memberships because I've built a lot. I don't have mine, and people try to convince me that I needed to have one. I don't, because I've been procrastinated about it, and deep down I don't want to have one, and that's okay. Right? So it's a sign when you're excited about something and it's aligned with what you really, really want to do. We find a way, right? When we procrastinate, as soon as we get into a hurdle, that's maybe a sign to listen, is this what I really, really want to do?
I love that. That being said, where can people find you, find more information about you? Where would you like people to go?
Yeah, so I think the best way to find me would be at the Membership Lab, so themembershiplab.com. And also they can find me on podcastleadflow.com. That's where we do the podcasting stuff with the leads. Awesome. Otherwise I'm on LinkedIn with my name.
Wonderful. We will put all that information in the show notes. Nathalie, thank you so much for all the information today. I know I pulled a lot from it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Everyone else, guys, once again, she gave me a bit to digest here. I am going to think about this, and I'll be right back in just a moment with the summary. Nathalie brought up some stuff that it's so interesting. There's so many things that we hear in podcasting all the time, but we don't always know how to put those pieces in place. the direct email piece, like, hey, if you find someone is in a certain spot on their journey and you've intentionally built an episode that can talk to people that are in that spot in that journey, holy cow, email it to them. It could be 2 years old. It could be 4 years. It could be 5 years old. Send that to them. It is still relevant. I absolutely love that piece. And it's something that I so often forget, especially look, I'm the business owner. I'm busy doing so many other things. There's all these other episodes out here that very simply are so easy to, hey, this made me think of you. Send it to them. Have your marketing team send it to them. Have a clip that you tag them in it and say, hey, I saw this and thought you should check this out. I know you're at this spot. What a brilliant way to keep that content working for you. So many times we get stuck in an area of podcasting where it's all about next week's episode. You need to keep creating content. That's how you're going to stay relevant. But in the same sense, make sure you don't forget about last week's episode or the week before or the year before. Those episodes are still hugely valuable. And as I said, while Nathalie and I were talking, I find that there's still episodes that are getting downloads that are a year or 2 years old. And it's across the board. It doesn't matter which podcast it is. It could be mine. It could be the Business Fix. It could be one of our clients' podcasts. We consistently see older episodes getting downloaded. There's people that are going to go back and be like, hey, I really like what these people have to say. They're going to binge it. How many times have you found an old TV show that you liked and you're like, you know what? I'm going to start from the beginning and listen to this thing or watch this thing the whole way through. People are doing the same thing with podcasts. Once again, you're creating content that is evergreen. And so often we forget that is there. And when you neglect it, it is kind of just going to sit there. So don't be afraid to go back a number of episodes and bring that up and put that in front of the people that need to hear and see it. Additionally, if you're intentional about what you're saying in those and how you've built those, it's something where you know that this is directed at person A. Too many cases we see people that are podcasting just to put content out, and they don't have that audience in mind, and they don't have that pain point in mind. What problem are you solving? They haven't thought about that, and you need to. Talk about the pain point that you solve. Talk about how you solve it, and think very intentionally about where that fits into your sales funnel. And talk about it at that point. I love the piece because it was like she was speaking to me about saying, look, maybe you're talking to people about getting them to do an introductory call. That's what we do with our 15-minute no pitch podcast consult. It's an introductory call. We're going to get your email address. We hope. We don't make you do it. But once again, it's that top of funnel. I know exactly where that's at. And that's to start that process of that know, like, and trust. And that's building knowledge for you. So that way you know how to be effective in a podcast. And we can be effective for you as producers, as coaches, as repurposing, as content repurposers. We can work well with you in all those specific areas. This one was another really, really good one. I'm so glad that I talked with Nathalie. That was through Podmatch. We found each other through there. It's been a great resource. That being said, we would love to be a great resource for you. Do me a favor. Click on any of the links below. We'd love to talk to you. Go into the Discord. We'd love to chat with you there too. I would also like to tell you, take care of yourself. If you can, take care of someone else too. I will see you very, very soon.